Hello everyone, today is the 19th of February 2025 and this is the Just Dario Daily. The title of today's daily is Norinchukin Bank Implosion Officially Begins. Is it possible for a bank to continue operating while being insolvent? The answer is yes, and Norinchukin Bank is the best example of it at the moment. This was how I started my last article on Norinchukin Bank 3 months ago. This is why yesterday I wasn't surprised at all when this breaking news hit the wires. Norinchukin CEO plans to resign after massive bond losses. During the last quarter alone, Norinchukin Bank incurred a 500 million yen net income loss, bringing the total for the first quarters of this fiscal year to 1.4 trillion JPY, equivalent to 9.2 billion US dollar. Where do these losses come from? They come entirely from Norinchukin Bank's securities portfolio, which shrank from 38 trillion JPY to 35.6 trillion JPY at the end of December 2024. From another perspective, this means that Norinchukin lost 20% on a 2.4 trillion JPY face value of assets liquidated. For those who are not familiar with how banks operate, please note that when a bank has to sell assets in a hurry to deal with a liquidity crisis, more on this shortly, the assets that have demand in the market aren't the most toxic ones, but rather the highest quality ones like government bonds and guaranteed bonds. Now, if Norinchukin took such a huge loss on the best assets it could liquidate in the market, what do you expect is the mark-to-market value of the remaining securities left in its portfolio? This is why it's a complete joke that the bank reports only 900 billion JPY of unrealized losses in its balance sheet as of the end of December 2024. Why is it a joke? As of the end of September 2024, Norinchukin Bank stated it only had 800 billion JPY of unrealized losses. Then 3 months later, it lost 500 billion JPY and the amount of unrealized losses increased to 900 billion JPY. This should make everyone seriously doubt any mark-to-market figure the bank is putting out there. Shouldn't it? If we already apply the 20% discount on the real price that the bank could fetch in the market to the 35.6 trillion JPY of securities left in its portfolio, the unrealized losses instead are 7.12 trillion JPY. Considering that the bank only has 4 trillion JPY of net asset left, it's becoming harder and harder for the Bank of Japan and Japanese government to hide the fact that the second largest bank in the country is more and more insolvent and in desperate need of a bailout to stay in business. One thing that struck me the most in the latest Norinchukin Bank financial report is the table Summary of Performance, which you can see here. Please take a look at the metrics for the third quarter of 2024. Do you notice anything incredible? Yes, my dear reader. Every single performance line is negative. Personally, I have never seen something like this before, and if this doesn't make it obvious how this very large bank is a sinking Titanic, I'm not sure what further evidence is needed. So why did Norinchukin sell all those securities in the last quarter and crystallize such a large amount of losses previously hidden in the hold-to-maturity books? Because the bank's liquidity crisis is worsening. Deposits fell in 1 quarter from around 58.9 trillion JPY to 57.9 trillion JPY. Repurchase agreements in liabilities, hence money borrowed against collateral, fell in 1 quarter from 9.3 trillion JPY to 6.2 trillion JPY. So the total is minus 4.1 trillion JPY of liquidity that they lost. How did Norinchukin Bank fight the liquidity crisis besides selling securities in the market for which they could find a buyer? Cash and due from banks in the assets fell from 20.9 trillion JPY to roughly 18.9 trillion JPY. Funding via certificate of deposits increased from 1.2 trillion JPY to 1.7 trillion JPY. Other liabilities increased from 4.6 trillion JPY to 5.4 trillion JPY. The bank has been trying to raise capital since May last year, when the breaking news, Japan's Norinchukin Bank is raising $7.7 billion in fresh capital, hit the wire. But as I flagged already at that time, whoever could read and properly analyze the books of the bank knew they were already insolvent and hiding a massive hole. Considering how much liquidity is being printed non-stop by central banks these days and how bullish stock markets are, if Norinchukin cannot raise capital in the best possible market condition, then its fate is sealed. and in the near future it is doomed to implode unless the government steps in with a massive, expensive bailout. Failure to bail out this bank will have incredible repercussions in the global financial system, similar to those that would have occurred if Credit Suisse was led to collapse. The problem here is that governments will not be able to afford to bail out all these giant banks forever. And the scary thing is, so many are in this very same situation, and I won't stop warning about it.